Hey, it's Kara from D&D Homebrew talking today about how the process of playing RPG games, thinking about them, and talking about them affects the way we play RPG games, talk about them, and think about them. And the reason this comes up is, I started this channel I think it's 5 years ago, man. And obviously it was about creating your own homebrewed D&D campaign, how to create a world, cities, personages, a history, and then, items and how to deal with players. And all this sort of evolved. And it evolved in the process of thinking about D&D, but also, or I should say RPG, because I played different games than just that, but also playing. Because when I came back from Europe 2019, I started playing D&D again after a 6-year hiatus, 5e, and I was at a game store in California and playing about once a week. Then COVID hit. I got a fantasy ground system. I started playing online. So I was playing I think 2 times a week, maybe one time, but at least 2 times a week. Then I moved from California to Michigan. I went back to game stores. I started running a game once a week, playing a game once a week at the game store, and playing in an online game once a week. So now I'm up to 3. And I have consistently been playing 3 games a week since then for the past 3 years. That's a lot of D&D. Those are 4-hour sessions. And then I'm doing the channel where I'm thinking about what am I going to say about this game. And then for the past 2.5 years, I've had a podcast, Monsters and Treasure, my podcast with Dan Norton of Bandit Ski, where we're talking to each other about role-playing. That is a lot of thinking about this game. And that thinking about it affects the way you play it, because there's I think it's agential reasoning, or realism, agential realism. The idea here is it's sort of the Heisenberg principle applied to the way we put together, especially playing games or interacting, where we are changing the process of how we do this by examining it, right? Just like Heisenberg said, when you try to look at the atomic particle, you change its direction. You can't really see. It's the uncertainty principle. And the process of doing this, and there's so many ways. For me, talking about it all the time and thinking about it all the time and playing has changed it. But also the way I play it. Because when I started playing online, and especially running, playing too with maps and getting computer-aided maps, when I was playing in a game store, whenever I had some situation that required the players to know where they are, because I said, I use miniatures, and they all brought their little miniature, and we would lay out, and I would draw it on this battle map. That process changed the way they were thinking about this situation. So, for example, you're walking along a river, and I'm describing it. We're not on a map. The figures aren't there. And then I say, you see a hut in front of you. And they go, how far away? It's around a little bend, but we'll say 60 feet. Well, if I draw that on a map, or I've got it all set up, and they put their figures on it, that means something's going to happen here. Because I wouldn't necessarily do that to fool them into thinking that. And then, and then they get closer to it because they know, and then they get to where they're on the map, and they can see the hut, and there's trees around or something, and something comes out from a tree and it's 30 feet away or whatever, burst, roll initiative, or begin talking. It might be some harmless old coot, harmless old lady that lives out in the woods, or is it a harpy, right? And they know how far away she is, and they're looking at that map. They're imagining it, and they're talking to me, but they're looking at the map. As opposed to, you're in a theater of the mind situation. Okay, you're walking along, you see a hut. How far away? 60 feet. Okay, we get within that 30 feet. This woman comes out and says, hello. Okay, what does she look like? And we just go through that process. And then we start fighting, right? Now, I grew up on miniatures, on battle mats. That's the way I like to play. But I can certainly play. I've played in many theater of the mind type campaigns. But what happened with my players was sometimes I would just say, I don't want to draw this on the map. Let's just do this battle. And they didn't take it as seriously, I noticed. It had an agential effect on their, thing. And if it did get serious, they might be like, let's draw this out. I want to see where I am. I had another situation where there was this battle at this fire giant's castle. It took 3 sessions to do, 4-hour sessions. Why? They had a map of this huge complex. They'd gotten this in advance. So I drew it all out on a battle map. I think I got a picture of it on my phone. I'll show it here. And they looked at that map and studied it. I also had a paper version of it. And then they had a group of mercenaries that was helping them. They were sort of adversaries, but also uneasy allies. And then the group split into two pieces. While they were doing all this stuff, and they couldn't, the fire giants couldn't know they were there. And there's all these things going on. And they were constantly looking at this map. I was describing everything. The map is bare bones, just written out. But it changed the way they thought about this, and obviously ranges of spells and, how far it took to get someplace, and they wanted to go back around this side area, and they were moving these mercenaries, and every turn they would move them, and they couldn't know how far close they were, right? They had to not metagame. But again, and again, it just that visual aid, it easily could have been done theater of the mind. I like to use maps. They liked it, to the point where later on in the campaign, one of the players built me a portable console with a TV in it so we could run the maps, because he had seen the maps I did online. I played with him online. And so we started doing it that way. And he built me this, and I said, you know what? You keep this. Thank you so much. But if I get a TV, will you do it for me again? He said, sure. So he built me one again. And it was the second version, so it was lighter, and it turned out good. And I used it. And so those changes then go to the process of running online. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and talk about, I run Fantasy Grounds, when the players, I just did this map of this cosmic cavern for my Patreon, where I have these pools of like cosmic energy all scattered through this giant, it's a one-room dungeon, a huge cavern, 450 feet by 350. And I'm thinking about when the players enter this, it's you teleport it in, and the only way to get out is to find the other teleport thing and find your way out. So they got to explore this cavern. What do they see? What do they do? And to describe this as the encounter is unfolding, to think about this, it changes depending on if I'm just describing this. You're on this portal, you're all standing there. Well, first of all, what was the process to get there? What's the context? The famous deconstructionist who said, without the text, there's nothing. They were much criticized, this French guy, for saying, it only exists in the text. That's totally. Well, actually, what he meant was, without context, there's nothing. There's no meaning. What's the context of how they got there? Was it a mistake someone made? They jumped through, the other one just followed? Or was it carefully planned? Do they know where they are or what they're supposed to get? It's not just if they got there accidentally, it's just to get out. If they went there purposely, what are they getting? Okay. And do they know anything about what to expect? So that context matters. And that's all just verbal description. That has nothing to do with the physical appearance here that they're in. But then they get there and they're on this pedestal. What do they see? What do they hear? What do they feel? And then, of course, my eternal question, what do you do? All right, so what you're seeing here is just a little bit of this cosmic cave map. And if we zoom up here, there is our portal that you enter on. So the players, and I have 5 players in this group. I've got 6 squares. They'll just appear in here. They're on this thing. Okay, this is the map as I created it. It's got these cosmic pools. It's got these crystals that are being ejected as the players are doing it. They're humors. Okay, but in a VTT, how does this appear? So I'm going to switch over. This is, here we have Fantasy Grounds. And I'll zoom up. That's a character, a human fighter, I think, named Draven, who has appeared. That's what he sees, because he's got a torch, 20-foot radius. He sees these walls. He sees this. In the dim light, he can sort of see those pools, but nothing more. If I add, so let me go. Oh, okay. If I add this other character, this is Grok. He is a orc, half orc. Oh, no, I think he's a full orc. And you press him. That's what he sees, because he has infravision. This is one of these things where I saw that Shadow Dark got rid of infravision. And there's some other systems. She borrowed a lot from different systems, but that one, and that is like, as a GM, you're like, man, I really missed it when it was like that, because he can see that, and he can see these pools, black and white, but he can see this, right? So now that affects what they're thinking in terms of what they're going to do. And I'll just add some other characters here real quick. All right, and I've added these other characters, and when we go to each one, that's a dwarf, gnome, here's another human. That's all they can see. So then they make their decision about where they want to go, and again, do you just get off the pedestal? Do you move as a group? Because the way this system works, you can move all together like so. Or do you move, you say, okay, I'm going to go over to this pond. Oh, I'm going to put this, I don't think I gave that person a torch. This person has a torch. So I'm going to go over to this pond, this thing, and now I see suddenly this. And how close do you get? Because you're just moving along your token here, okay? When you go, if the thing's in here, let's say you have these pseudopods that come out and grab the player. When the player goes like this, well, did you just move your guy? Now, you can have people that say, oh, we would have all moved together. And this is something that happens when you're on these maps visually. Someone just grabs their token and moves. And then all the other people go, wait a second, we said we were all going to move together. So the idiot would not have done that because the pseudopod grabs it. And I've seen GMs that say, hey, if you do that, if you move your thing, then your token, you've moved, right? Unless you say we always move together, unless we say otherwise, right? Okay. But see, and then, and as they move, as they go, they can see things. I've got these crystals down here. Notice the crystals, they can't see behind the crystal. They can see into it. And if I bring one of these characters with the dark vision, again, look at how much more they can see. But there are limits. They can't see forever. This place is pretty big. And this sort of experience, as opposed to drawing on a battle map and certainly just pure theater of the mind, changes the way we think about playing and think about how can I say this? Because there's a whole other thing. Might have to do another video on the importance of something. Once you're in this environment and you go into this map, things become very much more important than just for people then talking about it. But it doesn't have to be. You can certainly just do all this stuff and describe it. Theater of the mind, when the pseudopod, I walk over there. Okay, you walk over, the pseudopod attacks. Oh, no, we all go as a group. You don't have to make that decision as a GM. And there's no good way or bad, what you prefer, because what you'll find, I have found with theater of the mind often is, the creature comes out of the cosmic slop or something. It forms into a separate creature. Okay, comes at you. It engages so-and-so. Okay, can I get behind it to flank it if you have flank rules? Yeah, you can get behind it. Or, oh, no. As opposed to looking at the map, can I go through that square? In the old days, war games and stuff always had numbered squares. Why? Well, first of all, to do your setup and to identify. But also, square number 9623 is actually impassable, like in the errata, right? And you'll have that sometimes on these computer maps where it's half a square. Anyway, but you just say in a theater, yeah, you can get around behind them. Okay, I have +2. Okay, keep going. And what happens is those battles tend to be quicker. They tend to move because everything is, as my favorite term, a little more loosey-goosey, right? When you're actually looking, it changes the way you think about it. The way you think about the battle, the way you think about where you are, and the way you think about how you are visualizing what you can see. Again, I'm not even sure in some ways what this video was about, but it's something that's on my mind because, again, playing D&D or playing an RPG games 3 times a week, talking about it, doing this channel, going to conventions, going to game stores to do one-shots with people of other systems, all of that changes the way I think about the nuts and bolts of playing this great game. And as I say, this is part of the process of me of doing this channel and changing the way I think about it. And a shout out to my Patreon supporters who I made the Cosmic Caverns map for. Always love to create stuff for you guys. So again, I'd love to hear from you, any comments you have. I know this is a little bit esoteric, but what the hell, I just felt like doing it. Most importantly, again, if you like the channel, subscribe, all that great stuff. But most important, to get out there, play a game, watch the process of how it changes the way you think about it, and of course, tell somebody else about it.